Hey, what's up? Well, um, I'm already not doing very well on my New Year's resolution in making this video. Um, my lights are still weakly shining. Um, and wouldn't you know, they still have some idiots shooting off fireworks well past New Year's. And it's very infuriating because, it's just ridiculous. I do not understand people who want to do fireworks. Really, the 4th of July ought to be the only time that anyone ever thinks about fireworks, because that's really the only holiday that I have ever associated with fireworks. To have them in the wintertime is stupid because it's like, what kind of an idiot, wants to sit outside when it's cold and watch them? Even if you don't believe that colds are caused or made worse or more likely by being cold, it's still pretty stupid. I will never understand people who don't think, even just their own physical comfort is important enough to just come inside, sit down, and, not. I don't get it. I don't get why people would want to do that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the reason that I've always hated being female is the expectation to wear dresses in the wintertime and simply pretend like you're not cold, just to maintain some kind of a stupid image of what a girl is supposed to look like. You're supposed to pretend like you're not cold in a freaking dress in December or January. So, anyway, and it just really makes me mad, when I see men who could, theoretically, wear long pants and long sleeves anytime they want to, but yet they choose to do stupid things like, go outside without a shirt and in nothing but a pair of shorts in the wintertime. So, without further ado, I hope my dad stays asleep. He got kind of drunk, and that's another thing. It's like, I do not understand, why men consume alcohol, or really why women do either. I don't understand why anyone consumes alcohol. Because I don't get why men consume alcohol, because it's like, I just do not, I'll never understand that, because it's like, why do you need drugs to distract you from the wonderful life that is maleness? You know what I'm saying? Being male or masculine is just such a wonderful privilege that I will never understand why anyone would want to drug himself out of 100% sobriety and consciousness of every single moment and every single thing that comes along with being a man. You know what I'm saying? It's just too wonderful of a life to want to numb your brain so that it doesn't fully experience every aspect, every beautiful blue raspberry flavored ocean breeze scented aspect of it. Oh, and I don't get why women want to drink alcohol. I forgot to mention about women. I don't get why a woman or a female would ever want to consume alcohol because for one thing, you're already behind. You're being a woman, you're already automatically weaker than a man. You're automatically inferior in the way that you can never fight off a man if he wanted to hurt you. And so when you consume alcohol, it's almost like you need to be on alert at all times as a woman. You can never be too safe. You can never be too cautious. You have to always be afraid every single moment of your life. You can't even go out and check the mail in the broad daylight without wondering that some ape man out there is going to knock you down and beat you up and drag you away. You know what I'm saying. So women have to always be like on the defensive, like a small animal, always ready to, fight or flee. And so you're never safe as a woman, hence the sunglasses and the fake name. So I don't get why women consume alcohol, because it's like you're compromising yourself. You're compromising your ability to think clearly and rationally. Well, you're just compromising yourself. You're inducing a disability upon yourself to consume alcohol as a woman. So to drink alcohol ever for anyone makes absolutely no sense. And if you're in between, then obviously, you're even more of a victim than a woman because at least somebody might defend a pretty woman or girl, from an attacker. Whereas if you're like me, I mean, you're on your own. If you're somewhere in between male and female, it's like you're not strong enough to fight off a man, but then you're not pretty enough to have some big strong man come to your defense. You know what I'm saying? So I see no logical reason in the world for anyone to consume alcohol in a high enough quantity to affect them physically and mentally. If it's not good for people under 21, then why does it magically become okay the minute you turn 21? You know what I'm saying? When you should be the most intelligent you've ever been and the best looking you ever will be. So I don't get alcohol consumption for men, for women, for those in between. And hopefully you wouldn't give it to your animals or your pets. I mean, most people wouldn't. We've never done anything like that. Most people would not give their pets alcohol. And so if it would be cruel to animals in most cases to give them alcohol, then why the hell should a human do that? You know what I'm saying? So I do not consume alcohol. And it's infuriating, how many people just think that going to college or being a college graduate like me is synonymous with having gotten drunk a few times to the point of vomiting, maybe even blacking out and not remembering what happened. Why do people think that everyone who ever went to college lived in a dorm, got drunk, threw up, thought nothing of it? You know what I'm saying? Because that's one of the manyfold reasons I don't ever want to have kids, is because I just don't take vomiting lightly. And the thought of me having to vomit, either because of morning sickness or because of something the kids gave me after they were born, it's just not something I could just wipe my mouth and be okay with. Just like the common cold, only worse. And that's another thing. My mom thought she could tell me that I didn't have a cold in May of 97. And I think I've talked about it before, that even if this cold were not memorable for the other reasons I've discussed, the fact that I threw up, not because my stomach hurt, but because I got choked on that phlegm, like I did so many other times in my youth. Not so much my adult life, I've come close, but usually I'm able to stop it before that happens. Came really close during COVID. But, I didn't have a stomach ache. It didn't affect my stomach, but I got choked on that phlegm in May of 97. And of course, even if there were no other reason for that cold to be memorable, that would be it. Just the mere fact that I threw up is kind of like 9/11 to me. I think of it as 9/11 on the rare occasion that I vomit. It's just a horrible thing that you really just can't forget. So anyway, I had to go investigate a noise or something. So anyway, we've established that drinking is out. If I never consume alcohol ever the whole rest of my life, I will be just fine. And there is freedom in being a teetotaler and not having the bondage of your body's expectation of alcohol. So, what I want to talk about in this video, I've already spent too much time talking about all that. I want to talk about the different phases of these bodily function obsessions and how they came to be. How it was different stages of my lifespan. Rather than developing along a normal psychosexual path, as Freud would have called it, these paraphilias kind of developed during different phases of my life. Obviously you can probably imagine that, the peeing and or pooping, but especially pooping obsession that the foundation for that was pretty much my first 10 years of life, roughly. When I was like a young child, as far back as I can remember, and what really kicked it into high gear was when my mom got pregnant for my little sister. Around the time when I also had lots of cousins, somewhat close to her age, that were also in diapers. And when I was between the ages of 5 and 10 years old, I was around a lot of babies, okay? And no, I wasn't still having accidents or anything like that. Somehow or another, I developed an obsession about poop. Used to be urine did it for me, but then that pretty much wasn't enough. By the time I was 8 years old, and I was always like wanting to see the poop in babies' diapers, including my sister, but before her, it was like other babies slightly older than her, which is pretty embarrassing to think about, considering that they're now adults. Okay, so I was always trying to see poop in some way, shape, or form because I felt like I was too overly protected from it. The sight, the smell, everything about it. I felt like the adults in my life, but especially my mom, were too protective of me in the way of not allowing me to see or experience poop. Um, it was like if a baby pooped in a diaper. I can remember one time I was 7 years old and this little boy's mom changed him. He was about 2. And his mom changed him and put his stinky diaper in my bathroom trash can. And rather than just kind of not worry about it, my mom was Johnny on the spot, removing the bag with the poopy diaper in it before she wouldn't even let me go in there to pee. She's like, "Oh, I need to remove his poopy diaper. That's stinking up the bathroom." And it's like she couldn't even bear the thought of me peeing in the bathroom with his diaper in there. And while she may have pretended that it was because of the smell, I think what she really thought is that I would get curious and look inside at 7.5 years old. And so that sort of thing, I was always trying to see what my sister did when she was born. I was always trying to see what my little cousins did that were in between our ages. And there was a brief period wherein she had become potty trained, and there was maybe 1 or 2 other little cousins still in diapers. But since I'd seen so much from her, I didn't really care that much about seeing theirs, and I was starting to get older, and it became a little more awkward as I was entering puberty, and so I tried not to be as obvious about wanting to see it. So, that's where the groundwork was laid for that paraphilia or whatnot, and I would sometimes get in trouble in school for trying to work poop into little stories that was like they give you free time to write whatever you wanted. What I soon found out was that there were limits, there were boundaries. You couldn't write whatever you wanted, only within a certain, boundary. There were like limits on that, which I soon discovered. And so, I'd get in trouble for referencing poop. And they got my mom involved in a few cases, and it resulted in her threatening to tear up my stuff if she found something objectionable. And so it became a bit, it's like every year somebody would tell me something was inappropriate that I wrote. And it would hit me hard because it's like it would honestly slip my mind every year, what was appropriate and what wasn't when discussing bodily fluids. And Nickelodeon didn't help. Didn't help me learn the distinction between those two. And so, poop was always a fascination, but I quickly learned that, that gradually learned that it's unacceptable to discuss about someone who is over the age of 3, And if it's a girl over the age of 2, and just quickly learned that that wasn't gonna be allowed. So then there was this other stage of development, middle childhood, around the age of 9, when somehow or another, I don't know if it wasn't 7, 8, and 9, but somehow or another, as I learned that poop was unacceptable, I gradually sublimated the desire to write about poop or think about poop or discuss poop. It's in such a way that I would settle for it got sublimated into vomit somehow. Like somehow or another, I started, to really like to, because some kids threw up at school. And it gave me similar feelings, to when babies would poop in their diapers and I'd want to see it and discuss it and all that. And I may have thrown up a few times and had some feelings that I can't really describe or understand about that. And so, I began to like sublimate this desire for things pertaining to poop into, wanting to discuss vomit instead because it was something that could happen to people who were potty trained. And, it was like poop coming up the other end. And so, but then I learned that that also wasn't really widely accepted, or people didn't like me discussing it, and it didn't really happen that often in public to many people. Once they got past puberty, it just always mysteriously seemed to happen in the bathroom and rarely happened at all once you got to be an adult. And so the third stage, the third phase, and that is where 97 comes into play and why it was such an important turning point. The third phase of, this craving for the discussion of bodily fluids was in 97, the adolescent phase, when I should have been getting into boyfriends and normal things around the age of 13, having a normal sexual development. Well, instead, since I was too old to really talk that much about poop and it be okay, and I was too old for, vomiting to be a commonplace, normal, acceptable discussion either. And farting was something you just did in the toilet like everything else. Well, there was this other, I don't know how to describe it, this other thing that was like humiliating, but to nowhere near the extent, this other bodily fluid that was still gross, but not as gross, and it was snot and colds. And so it's almost like a gradual sublimation of, the common denominator was me wanting to humanize or infantilize people or characters who were threatening in some way. And like, I don't know how to describe it, but wanting to see them humbled by, just basic bodily functions and issues that made them vulnerable. Wanting to see people made vulnerable or humble by just having the same bodily functions and things like that as everybody else. And so, and another thing that went along with these obsessions, it's like beginning at 9 years old, every time the subject of vomit would come up, I'd say like I'd never thrown up in my life. And of course that was a lie. And then as I got to be 13, I would say that I didn't get colds. I was a space alien from a planet where they didn't get sick. But in addition to that, I also would continue to say I'd never vomited. So now it's 2 lies. It was lies on top of lies. And I got this thrill from, cause it's almost like I saw myself as some character in a movie. I would say that I didn't get colds and then I'd get one, and I'd get a thrill from, being teased about having them. I mean, it just became ridiculous. I mean, so many people knew me from previous grades, and they knew. And then in college, they wouldn't even play along with that anymore. And so, it started out, and I would also say, like, I was never a baby and stuff like that. Like, I'm from a planet where they don't start off as a baby and they don't poop in their diaper. stuff of that nature. Because like I was wanting to like distance myself from these embarrassing bodily issues that make people human and thereby humble, and wanting to be like in this lofty place of I'm different from everybody else. I'm elite. I'm above everybody else. I'm superhuman. I don't do those things. I never did those things. You know what I'm saying? Never wanting to be vulnerable, never wanting to like, share in these things and laugh about them. You know what I'm saying? Get drunk with a bunch of fellow college students, throw up and laugh about it. Never went on any. Well, I went on some roller coasters, which became less enjoyable as I got fat. But I never threw up on any, and I didn't really go like with friends my age, just a few cousins. And obviously, I never got sick, during those few times as a kid when I got on roller coasters, and just had this mental barrier to so many just commonplace things that other people don't really think about. And so there were these different like stages of this, the poop obsession, up to 8 years old. Then it sublimated into vomiting in elementary school. Then on top of vomiting, it became, colds at the age of 13 because we studied colds and viruses and, just various like incarnations of this. I don't have bodily fluids. I don't have bodily functions. I'm better than everybody. I'm too good to, let things like that happen to me. And, now that I'm an adult, it's like, this final stage of it, this more realistic stage of I don't have any kids because I don't want any of those things, to affect me, which is what I fear all my life. And the common thread is just a fear of vulnerability, a fear of people learning that I'm human just like everyone else, which is why I'm so ashamed of my body. Why I would choose to wear winter clothing 366 days out of a leap year and, 365 days out of a year like this. If it wouldn't be so hot in the summer. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why I can't write a normal story, that's non offensive, because it's like those three specific things in particular have just always plagued me my whole life. And it comes out in everything I write and everything I do. This fear of vulnerability, this not wanting to fit in and be like everybody else, because it's like my name just kind of sets me apart, and I can't just be, another woman named Mary or Susie with a bunch of kids that, throws up from morning sickness and catches every cold that her kids bring home, and she just laughs about it because it makes her just like everybody else. And just like her husband John or Dave or whatever, as he catches the same colds most of the time. And it's like I don't know. It's just, and I see, this common thread of me identifying with villains with unusual names, and just seeing, like, just projecting myself onto them, and like getting a thrill out of the idea of them being humbled by their bodily functions, whether or not they've ever stated anything like that. So yeah, this video is way too long, and I'll go ahead and post it. Happy New Year.